whether you call it your higher self, the universal, your spiritual, it will hit you again. It's going to come around.
Yes.
It's like, when you're dating the same guys over and over and over again, darned if, you don't realize like, hey, that type of guy is not right for you. You're going to get another one, right? Hello, everyone. And this is one of those days that you are going to wish that this just kept going. Don't end. Don't stop the magic. And don't, especially, stop the wisdom from coming through. And what if you thought you were on this trajectory of like success, like things are going really well. And then all of a sudden, what you thought to be true was not. Well, today I have Angie Wisdom. Are you getting the little thing I said there? The whole wisdom thing. I've got Angie Wisdom here, and she is a master certified coach, the author of the Non-Negotiable You. And she's the creator of the Morning Mindset Journal. And we're going to be talking about how to actually leverage those as well. And it's called Start With You. She's a speaker and co-owner of a global alternative investment firm. So we're talking about those people that seem to be able to juggle it all. Don't you always want to know, like, how do they do it? What is their routine? Well, everyone, this is your day. This is the lucky day for Angie Wisdom to bring that wisdom to you. Angie, thank you so much for being here. This is going to be such a fun, lively, very wisdom-focused episode.
Thank you for having me, Hilary. I'm super excited, and we put a lot of emphasis on that wisdom. I better deliver today.
What a great name. I mean, I'd like to be Hilary Love.
Yeah.
Forget about DeCesare. I'm changing my name.
I love it.
So good. Okay. So I do want, I found that your profile and your bio is just so fascinating, especially to me, because I think that there's a lot of similarities here of what we've been through. And I'd love for you to share what has gone through your world that allowed you to successfully relaunch after you're sharing this journey. Like, how were you able to actually take that next step after the relaunch? So first share the relaunch and then let us know what came next.
Yeah. The relaunch, it's hard to even choose what relaunch to work from here.
And as we get older, isn't that the case? Which one
you're like,
I share?
I've had this relaunch, this one, what's the best one? And I think the relaunch I want to bring to you today is kind of the pivot in my career. I started out in the financial industry back in 1997 at Morgan Stanley Dean Witter, and I was a financial advisor, and I liked helping people. I thought I was going to be a nurse before that, and then found that I would help them with money. And, one day I found myself...
money. Now there's an interesting transition right there. We'll touch on that later.
Yeah. So, but I was still in that space of like, well, at least I'm helping people, but it's in a different way. And I was really good at it, but it wasn't super passionate for me. I found myself one day literally like crossing days off of my calendar, like I was serving some kind of prison sentence. And it just finally dawned on me. I was like, why am I so excited to like cross a day off a calendar? Like, thank goodness I made it through it and I survived it. And it just I had this aha moment where I was like, what am I doing? I shouldn't just be waiting for the next great thing to happen. Like something obviously was off for me. And that really had me pivoting from being that financial advisor and, serving clients to help them invest money to really what I found I was super passionate about, which was helping people develop their business and professionally themselves. So I really started heading into management and working with other financial advisors and brokers on helping them build their business and those relationships. And I found a real passion for that. I was still kind of performing at this place, though, where I know you can relate to this, where it was all just grit, perseverance, determination. And it was like grinding away to get that success. And there was still this little lack of, joy and fulfillment. And so the big relaunch was when I stepped aside from the investment company that I co-owned, still part of it, but really decided to take my coaching full time and do what was so on my heart to impact and change people's life on a daily basis.
So it's so interesting that many of us have that something's off moment. We're like, is this really what I should be doing? Am I really fired up about this? Am I really passionate about this? Or am I just collecting the paycheck? And you really had an opportunity because you were doing really well. How did you really go about dealing with that? That something's off, but yeah, I'm making some good money.
Yeah. I think the first thing that I really had to reconcile was the fact that you have to put aside this guilt of not being grateful for what you have. Because I had a great husband, marriage, were financially on our way, like building a good kind of portfolio for ourselves. And I was young. So it was like all these things that kept telling me, you should be grateful. There's nothing to be unhappy about. And so you have to kind of let go of that guilt and realize that you could be grateful and still be missing something. And that was like that first shift for me. Okay, I can be grateful for what I have, but it's okay that I'm still feeling like something is off and I'm missing something. And that's really what gave me the space and the grace to start exploring. And, I started doing personal development and I led with my values was really the first thing. I had to go back to the drawing board and go, what truly fills my cup? What puts a smile on my face, what warms my heart, gives me butterflies in my belly. Like I had to get back to those pieces in order to find what was really going to bring me joy.
Well, what you said, what you're grateful for what you have. Because let me tell you, I feel another connection to you because same situation where I'm like, from the outside, it looks really, really, really good.
Yeah.
And from the inside, I'm like, there's just something missing, but I was almost embarrassed by my thoughts. I was like, what are you doing, Hilary? Like you're going to ruin a really good thing. And at that point, I didn't know enough to look at, okay, but here's what I'm really grateful for. I could see it from the surface. I could say, okay, well, it is. And I would go back and it was like, the angel and the devil, working in your mind. You're like,
yes.
Stay where you are, stick it out. You're making good money. You got the house, you got the kids, you got the husband, you got all these different things. But it felt like, I felt like I was seeing a movie on a screen and that was the life I was living. But something inside of me was like, whoa, so not like it is not what's firing me up. It is not resonating. So you ended up having a situation happen with an investment firm that had invested. And I know that this kind of contributed to everything. Can you share that story and how that all ties into this whole idea of really finding what's missing and moving forward to go forward?
I worked for firms for a few years. And then back in 2003, my husband and I decided to open up our own investment firm, global investment firm. So it was a big deal. It was a big jump. That was part of finding my joy, was doing something bigger, not working for somebody else. So that was a big step for us. We ran a very successful firm. And, to give you a little bit of color and clarity on how that works is when you have an investment firm, all the trades and the processing of trades have to go through what's called a clearing firm. So the clearing firm that we worked through, all of a sudden on October 31st, 2011, all funds were frozen. The CEO back then, John Corzine, basically moved money fraudulently from one account to another. And it caused the whole firm to go into a state of frozen funds, and they were going to file bankruptcy right away. So the years that we had taken to build this, just the two of us from the ground up, managing millions and millions of dollars for clients and having very successful business, was just poof. I mean, instantly in that moment, frozen. So we went into a place of no revenue, no client trading, no access to client funds. All of our clients, are calling us. And it was
It
just
sounds a lot like Silicon
chaos.
Valley Bank right now, right?
Yes.
I'm sure that brought up a little PTSD where you're like, oh, I remember this situation. Yeah.
I go back to that morning, when it was like, what, and we're watching CNBC and it's on CNBC and we're calling and trying to kind of get these details. And it was just, I get goosebumps still talking about it because it was like somebody just stopped your whole life, and I know that sounds big because of course we had family and everything else, but like it was major.
Oh, that is literally, and I can feel for you on that one too, because we had not exactly like that, but a situation where my board member was doing a Ponzi scheme and it all blew up and he went to federal prison. And it was just like, I think about those times. I'm like, oh, like it's just, I had 63 investors in my company and I'm like, oh my God, like what's next? And you're frozen, right? You talk about, the fear response and, you either, you freeze or you fight or you flee. And it's like at that moment, my past would have been, I get the heck out of here. Like, I just want to leave. But in that situation, you don't have a choice, fiduciary responsibility. Like you got this thing and you're like, ah. So what happened?
Yeah. I just went into this mode of, letting go of any fear and concern and just getting into, what can I do? And, thankfully I had the coaching and the personal development on my side to start doing that, but I had to zone in and go, what are my controllables here? I could sit here and spin and pace, on the floor thinking about what if, and how could they do this? Or I could make that list of going, what are my controllables? My controllables are talking to every single one of our clients every single day. My controllables are reaching out to attorneys and getting the information. Like I had to just focus on what I could control. And that gave me a sense of kind of peace and calm. Like I'm doing something, I'm taking action, I'm making effort. And that translated to our clients where they were like, okay, someone's doing something. And a lot of the other brokerages, they didn't, they just kind of threw up their arms and were like, I have no idea what to do. And I guess this is the end of it. But we literally, we stuck it out. And every single day we were updating and finding information. And eventually, little by little, as they worked through the bankruptcy proceedings, they would release a little client funds. We ended up establishing a new relationship somewhere else that next day so that our clients did have a place if they wanted to start trading immediately.
Because that was a controllable, right?
Yes, that was uncontrollable. Mm-hmm. So it's just so important in that time that you don't get wrapped up thinking in all the things that you can't control, because that will have you just stuck in the mud, cause anxiety and stress and overwhelm. And it was really those controllables that we took action on and that paved the way for us to find our way out.
I know people are going through so many different things right now. And I really like what you said about, you have to be able to look at it from the situation of what can I actually do, right? What can I, and sometimes you have to give yourself the grace and the space to sit down, get out of the environment, take a walk and just be like, okay, I'm in that ass sandwich, where how am I going to be able to do this? And let yourself say, all right. And I also am a big advocate. And you said, you'd been going through the coaching and maybe even had coaches, because at that point, it's giving you that opportunity to say, okay, if I were coaching me, when you play that little mind game, we call it a relaunch flip, where you're like, okay, I don't have, and I'm sure you get this too. People are like, I have no choices. There is nothing.
Yes.
I have. And then I always often say, what is the absolute worst scenario that you could happen here? Let's go there. Okay. The worst.
Right.
Oh, this could happen and that could happen and da. People are like, oh, that's so bad. And then I say, okay, so that's the worst, but does it impact, really all these different things? And we start asking the questions. How is this really to impact you? And as they start, and then I say, well, what in 1 year would you think about this situation? Right? Because we've now gone down the rabbit hole. It's horrible, horrible. We've now said, okay, well, what, and where you're going with this, which I love, is that you immediately took action. You went out, you found another, within a day, you said, another funding source. And so you had that moment of like, okay, things are going to change. What did you then do as you're continuing? Because you said, were you just starting the coaching, or did you have a coach? How were you? Because you mentioned that. I just want to understand.
Yeah.
Clarity.
I was still coaching within our firm and other financial advisors externally. So I was in that role of both co-owner and kind of executive. So working with the legal department and compliance and the clearing firms, and then was also coaching brokers. So I had this other element of me working and coaching the brokers to go, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You know what I mean? Here's what we're doing. And so that was an interesting component as well, when you're actually going through what you're trying to coach somebody on as well. And, a lot
of lessons to be learned there, right?
A lot of, yes. I'm like, I'm telling you this for you and for me.
Yeah.
We're both here right now.
You're like, Angie, are you listening?
Yes.
Are you listening?
Yes. Here's what we need to hear right now.
Exactly.
So
from there, how did you end up becoming the position that you're doing now? Because you've juggled so many different things. And I think a lot of people out there are trying to figure out, is this my time? Something's off. I want to make a change. Do I do it all at once? Did you kind of work your way into it? What happened? How did you manage to officially then move into what you're doing now?
Part of that experience, I think, pushed me to go, I belong in that coaching role full time. Like, I persevered through something with so many tools that people could use. And I was 100% confident that you could overcome anything. And I was like, this is what I need to be sharing with people every single day. I need to be doing this full time. So it was definitely one of the catalysts that pushed me in that area. And for me, I started slowly because I had already had coaching people that I was coaching outside of my investment firm. So it just kind of started to expand little by little. And then eventually I was like, the company was dialed in, our investment company, and I felt like I had this space to really step away from it and not be involved on a daily basis. And that's when I said, okay, here comes Angie Wisdom Coaching and Consulting, and put it out there, and it was instant traction. And I believe that it is because of the passion I have behind it. And when you work from a place of passion and purpose, you find your business, you find the people that want to work with you because of that. And that was what transitioned for me. And I still have a hand in that business, very, very on a very small level, financially and compliance wise, but day to day, I'm in that coaching seat now all day, every day.
Okay. So as you are really finding the right place, you decided to go all in. As you say, you're still an investor and you still do, some things, but your daily is around offering, the coaching. And you decided to write a book. Yes. And the Non-Negotiable You. What is it all about, and why did you decide to write it?
The funny thing about that is why I decided to write it is twofold. One, because I used to say I was a horrible writer, and I thought the hardest thing to do would ever be to write a book. So I was like, therefore, I will write a book. Challenger mindset, so that was
really challenging. It was challenging for me to write my book, I have to say.
You know how that is. Yes.
Yeah. And I did not think I was a writer. I did not, but I kind of was like, this could be one of the biggest challenges I'm ever going to put myself through. And I feel like I just, Mount Everest And
Yes.
that book was my Mount Everest.
Yes, exactly. And that's, I'm that type of person who's like, oh, you have a fear, go towards it. So that's what writing was for me. So I went towards it. But underneath of that too was this need that I felt to be able to help people that couldn't sit here with me in my office, one-on-one, in a group of mine. When I started my coaching, it was all one-on-one. And I quickly found that I didn't have the capacity to serve everybody. So I started doing groups, and then quickly found from there that even with the groups, there were still other people that maybe wouldn't ever have the opportunity to be in a group or one-on-one. So I wanted to put that information in a book so that they could all experience that as well. And the non-negotiable you is truly about this version of you that can get through all those relaunches, right? The version of you that lives life to their fullest potential, that has a relationship.
You're speaking my language, girl.
Yes, right? So
good.
You know exactly what it takes to go through those relaunches and to live your best life. And to me, I took 25 years of sitting across the table with people. And I said, what constantly gets in the way for people? What is always tripping them up and holding them back from living their best life? And I took all of that, I reverse engineered it into my journal, and then wrote a book about it so that anybody could read this and go, okay, here's the foundational pieces to being the best me who can live their best life.
Okay, so it's kind of for you, the chicken and the egg, but the journal came first. You created the journal, the morning mindset journal, and start with you. And so what was it about a journal that you felt you had to get out there first?
I strongly believe, and again, kind of taking my knowledge from working with people for so long, I saw these things that got in the way, these obstacles. And I said, well, I know a few things. One, we need to proactively start our day in order to have the day that we want and in order to live the way that we want. I also know that there's these other components around confidence and gratitude and mindset that if we actually proactively put them in our life, like taking supplements, they're going to rewire our brain and recreate us into a different person. So that was my passion behind it. And I would give this practice to my clients all the time. I literally had it on like a PDF, and I was like, print this and do this in a journal or whatever. And so many people would be like, can you put this like in a real book for me? Because I have like 200 pages of this lying around. So I put it in a journal and had it for my clients. And then they started gifting it to people. And then the people who were receiving it as a gift were reaching out going, can you give me some detail on this and on this? So it was like, it wasn't quite just here you go with no other information. And that's what inspired me to go, okay, well, let me write the book that ties it all together. So now people really have the full package.
Oh, okay. This is so great because, as I said, my book came first, and now people are like, how do I do this on a daily basis? And so the journal, and I said that to you, I love that you have a journal. I'm a huge journal fan. And and that's where I'm going with, the journal is next, the workbook, all these different things. But I want to know, what about your journal then is truly unique? Give us some things that are in this journal that you're like, oh yeah, this is what makes it so good.
The beginning of it, it's a 100-day journal, and the beginning of it has you clarify your values and what you want from life goals, over the next 100 days. So
I love that you're doing 100 days and not a year.
Yeah. I like to break things up. A year is a long time for people to stay like in the same game and committed. So 100 days, let's talk about this for 100 days, and things change. So really understanding like what my values are, how they fill me up, what I want to accomplish in this 100-day formula. And then as you set every day and you write in your journal, you're writing intentions that align with your values. So you're living that fulfilled life. You're setting intentions that align with those goals that you outlined in the beginning. And one of my favorite components about the journal is there's a daily reflection. And this is almost like a self-coaching tool, because every day you ask yourself, did my values show up? You can literally like pause and think about it and go, yeah, feel great. All those values got in there. You ask yourself, did you accomplish your intentions? So you've got a little accountability partner there. And then two of my favorite questions, what got in the way? So if you didn't accomplish those intentions, what got in the way for you? Learn something so that you can adjust tomorrow instead of continue to bang your head up against the wall 6 months later and wonder why you haven't written that book yet. And then what did I learn? What did I learn? And, you're growing, you're learning, you're, holding yourself accountable. You're creating this beautiful relationship with yourself. And eventually that cuts out all that external noise and allows you to lead yourself.
The what did I learn, I think, is very impactful for people because we go through life and we think that things are happening, to us, right? And this gives you the ability of reconnecting with that situation, restructuring it, right? And say, as soon as you say, what did I learn from that? It opens up you to not feel like it has the shackles around you. You're like, wait a second, I really did benefit from that. A lot has to do with like even this podcast, so I used to call it in season 1, the silver lined relaunch. And that there's always, no matter what relaunch you're going through, no matter how bad it is, there's always that, all right, silver lining. And, what did you learn? What did you learn? What was your takeaway? And I just said this to one of my kids. I said, hey, here's the thing. If you don't really lean into what you learned and you don't let that, whether you call it your higher self, your, the universal, your spiritual, it will hit you again. It's going to come around. It's like, when you're dating the same guys over and over and over again, darned if, you don't realize like, hey, that type of guy is not right for you. You're going to get another one, right? It just happens.
So true.
I love that, that whole like lesson. How do you get people to really evaluate? Because sometimes they're like, I don't know what the lesson was. How do you take them down that path?
For me, I always like to tell people, look, it can be the littlest thing or it can be big. Don't overthink it. And you will laugh when I tell you this, but sometimes what I learned is like, I learned that a cupcake before lunch does not make me feel good and I shouldn't do it again. Like it can be something so little like that. I learned that I really would be better off, ordering dinner out on Fridays because I'm exhausted. Something like that. Or it could be, I learned I'm really passionate about being face-to-face with people instead of, on Zoom with clients. So you don't have to judge it, don't look for this major earth-shattering like learning opportunity. Just assess yourself, be aware and go, what came to me? What did I learn? Because it's those little things that give you the opportunity to change, to eat differently, to show up differently, to converse differently. And it doesn't have to be big.
Well, we have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to go into what are the non-negotiables? Like, what do you have to make sure that you got to have at some point, like, hey, that I'm not crossing the line there. I'm sticking to my guns and I'm doing this. I am absolutely, this is a non-negotiable. So we're going to go into that. And then you're not going to want to miss this because there's a huge part of what you teach people and it's the rewiring. Rewire your brain. And this is the part that I love. So don't go anywhere and we will be right back. Welcome back. And I am with Angie Wisdom, and she has given us a tremendous amount of the wisdom of how you can actually have a life that you are really excited about. And more importantly, right now, a lot of times we go through our days and we allow for things to show up that we're saying, hey, but wait, I don't want that to happen. So what did Angie do? She went and she wrote the Non-Negotiable You. And we are talking about what are the non-negotiables that people should have to really make sure that they have that lifestyle of success and make sure they're setting themselves up for something that they really are actually fired up in the life that they want to live? How do you do that?
There's, the book really is comprised of several non-negotiables. So maybe we should pick out a couple favorites.
Perfect.
One of, the foundational pieces that I believe and I work with clients right away on is their values. It's non-negotiable that you understand what fills you up and how to put that into your life every single day. And tied to that is the responsibility, right? If you know that something brings you joy, it's your responsibility to put it in your life and not slip into this space of like, well, I don't have the time. Well, somebody else wanted something from me, where, I refer to that as kind of falling into that victim mode. And
okay. Everyone out there has to be like nodding their head right now, right? That we sit there and, first off, learn what lights you up, learn what fires you up, learn what you need to refuel, to bring that, engine of yours, that tank, to a high level. And then I love that you said that it is your responsibility to make sure that you include that. Right. Yes. And it is so easy to get so caught up with, I'm just so busy. I got to do this. I got to do that. Why do you think that people have to? It is a necessity. It is their responsibility. What does it do for them when they actually take on that and fill up their tanks?
Yeah, it gives them more energy. It gives them more motivation. It gives them fulfillment. So it basically allows them to, love their life, but also continue to grow and progress. If you are not putting in your life what is important to you, like your values, then you go through these feelings where you hear people go, well, I just feel kind of lost. I feel stuck. I feel unmotivated. I'm just not very clear. That's because you don't have a compass of what you should be, leaning towards. Your values are truly that compass. So they're so important because of the way they make you feel, but also because they guide all your decisions. We make decisions in one of two ways. We either use our values. Yes, I like family time, so I'm going to spend time with my family, or we make them based upon our feelings. I don't feel like getting out of bed. I don't feel like working out today. So when you know your values, we use them for that as well. And a lot of that lack of motivation and energy and lack of confidence, things that a lot of people suffer from, come from making decisions on those feelings because they're never in alignment with what's actually important to them. So a huge piece there. It's a huge piece.
And then you realize why they fall into victim mode.
Yes, 100%. So it is it's literally, one of the first chapters in the book. It's the first thing I do. Even if I talk to somebody randomly and they're like, where do I get started? What? And I'm like, figure out your values. Do this worksheet and know what your values are. And your one assignment every single day is to get those to show up in your life. Just start with that.
And then once you get them to show up in your life, then you start to put them into your business, right? You want to make sure.
Absolutely.
I think that I'm seeing more and more these days that we think we need to create a business for perspective and perception of what's really, what people are going to want. And then we miss that, hey, you're showing up in that business, right? Whether it's 8 hours, 10 hours, 14 hours or more every single day. If it's out, if you're not bringing your own values into your business, you talk about misalignment, you talk about what you're saying. That is an absolute non-negotiable for me, that I have to be so in line. Every piece of anything we put out there has something to do with our core values, which are my core values.
Exactly. And if you don't align those, then that's where people get resistance, where they're wondering like, why am I not taking action? Why am I not doing what I should be doing in my business? There's a good chance you're building your business without your values.
And I also think, and I know you go into this, it's about, when you're not in alignment, it makes you work harder. And that's when burnout really starts to surface. How do you tie burnout in with core values and everything about non-negotiables?
Yeah, I believe that I like to tell people to look at it like your cell phone battery, right? And if you get all your values in, and I'm talking like you have like 5 or 6 core values, if those come in, your battery's fully recharged. And you go about your day, you show up as the best you're full of energy, motivation, focus, all of that. If you don't, that battery life drops and drops and drop. And you go another day and you didn't really, show up as the way you want to. You didn't really get your family time in. You didn't really get your exercise time in, kind of skipped out on that learning and development. Whatever you value, that battery just continues to decrease. And that's all of a sudden when it's empty and it's redlining. And it's hard to get out of that spot because you don't have the energy. So it becomes this kind of like, mind game with yourself where you're like, well, I'm too tired to go do these things that I love. And it's like, because you've been starving yourself from them. You have to kind of just go, I know I'm tired, but I know these are going to refuel me. So let's go take some action and get those values in.
So one of the things that I'm hearing more and more with COVID and with what has happened to the world in the last 3 years is that people, say, I want family time. I want family time. Family is, one of my top priorities. And now as things are opening up and we're moving back out and we're doing more things, all of a sudden you look at their calendar, you look at what they're focused on, and they're so busy that there is no family time in there. Or if there is, it's like, they're the cell phone's at the table and they're distracted. So I just read that if you can, even for 30 minutes, focus specifically on your present position with your family, like you're in front of them and you're fully focused, it's worth more than 3 hours. 30 minutes is worth more than 3 hours of being all over the place if you're fully present. And then when you look at your calendar, and as you're, putting together your journals and everything, one of the things that they say is that when you go back and look at the last week, it will let you know your values. Because
absolutely,
it will let you know, it'll let you know what you're not doing, which values, because all of a sudden, if you don't have any family time on your calendar and you're sitting here, family is so important to me, it's a real indicator, right? So your calendar actually gives you the sense of, and it will say, hey, you were doing this. This was important to you. This is one of your values. You have it there. It's like your calendar is going to give you everything you need to know if you're just starting out right now. You're either doing a great job or you need to work on some of these things. So as you're going into this, burnout, and you're feeling like, what can you actually do to get out of that burnout scenario? And it's kind of like a spiral, right? It keeps sucking you in.
It does. And that's that important, mentality of just, I may not feel like it right now, but I have to ignore the feelings and I have to lean into the value. So think about one thing that brings you joy. Even if right now you go, gosh, what's the last thing that really put a smile on my face? It's probably value oriented for you, and go do it. Whether it's reading for 5 minutes, whether it's closing your eyes and relaxing, whether it's getting outside in the sunshine, it's even that smallest amount that starts to recharge your battery and puts you on the right path. So really it's flipping that switch from burnout. You have to go, what would actually bring me joy? May not feel like doing it, but I'm going to do it. You can use the Mel Robbins 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? And you just do it. Right. You're going to start to feel that recharge. And that's going to be the confirmation. It's like, oh, this feels good. I need a little bit more of this.
Do you believe that there has to be a certain amount of time? Like, does 5 minutes of joy equal 4 hours of a charging station? Is there anything?
I wouldn't say there's a certain amount of time, because there's a phenomenon with it in the sense that, one, you're getting something that you like, but from a mentality standpoint alone, you just being able to say, this is what I like, this is what I need, and I'm giving it to myself, just that effort right there starts to rewire your brain for you. So it doesn't have to be an all or none thing. And I tell people all the time, what feels reasonable? 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Talk about the moms who have kids and they're like, I wish I could have alone time. I'm like, you can. stay in the bathroom a little longer, get dressed a little
That's what
longer.
I used to do. Mommy's busy.
Yep. Make it your alone time. Sit in the car before you come inside. You have to, though, again, go back to that responsibility and go, if this is what I know fills me up, it's my responsibility to figure out how to get it in.
That is a big one, everyone. It's your responsibility. You have to, and you need to determine, for me, I need my time in the morning. Like that's a non-negotiable. And I actually have it on my calendar. I need about 2 hours. And it allows me. So if I have a call at 8, then I need to be, up by about 5:30. So it gives me a little time to get ready. But I have to have that. I do not, if I get rushed in the morning, if I can't do my process of, really having my own mindset, it sets my whole day off on a different tangent. Why? Because it's not aligned with my value system.
Right.
It connects me back to what's really important for me. It gives me a chance to evaluate what I've got coming up. And I love that you said that. There was an interesting, I use it often as an analogy and kind of to summarize what we're talking about. And it's the idea that we have mirror neurons in our head, and there's billions of cells in our head. And the mirror neurons, when one monkey, let's just say, is cracking a peanut, the other monkey actually gets the same in the brain. It lights up just like the monkey cracking the nut.
Yes.
It's the same. So when you think about that and this idea of, and it goes back to like when somebody yawns and then somebody else yawns, right? It's a reaction. You're seeing it. And sometimes we don't even realize it. I think that when you start to realize that if you can, and you use joy a lot, and I love that joie de vivre, the joy of life, when you can incorporate that in those moments and then be able to acknowledge them, smile, right? There's studies that say go into the mirror and smile for 30 seconds. It's the craziest thing, but it's that mirror neurons. You're giving yourself what you ultimately need. And so you got to figure it out. What is it going to be? Is it going to be 5 minutes? Is it going to be 30 minutes? Is it going to be 4 times a day? And then calendar it. And when you do that, how do you think that, I know you talk a lot about rewire your brain. What about the rewiring process do you think is the most helpful for people when they're really feeling like they're spiraling?
Yeah, it's choosing your thoughts. I like to think of our mind as a filtering system. And most people believe that whatever thought comes into their mind must be because their mind thought it. And we really have to change the way and say that really what comes into my space comes from a lot of different places, past experiences, your environment, your circumstances at the time. And so they're not necessarily true. So I say you have a filter. When that thought comes in, it is your, again, responsibility, one of the non-negotiable things, to go, does this thought serve me? Do I keep it or do I trash it? And when you start to get in control of the thoughts that come into your head, you start to rewire your brain, because you're basically saying, thoughts just can't take up residency and make me think whatever they want me to think. I'm actually going to be conscious of this and go, well, I'm not going to believe that. I'm going to get rid of that and I'm going to choose something else. And this is the most powerful practice and process for people to really start getting control of their mind so that they aren't at the mercy of it, and get into that victim mentality.
So there is a concept of if you're above the line, you're a victor. If you're below the line, you're a victim, and being able to be aware of when you're in that victim mode and then rising above it, right? It's like having power, being powerless, victim, and being powerful as the victor. What are some ways that you think people can move from being in that victim place to feeling like, all right, I got this. Like things are not holding me down, that I can actually, it's not going to hold me back anymore. I can actually create what I want.
Recognizing what you want, taking action and achieving that little process. And it could be something so simple like today I'm setting an intention to eat a healthy breakfast. You do that, you recognize it. That right there starts to tell you like, okay, I can decide what I want. I can take action on it and I can accomplish it. And that is empowerment. Now you're showing, you've heard the expression success breeds success. That's what we're doing here. So even as simple as like, I'm putting my shoes on right now, putting my shoes on, and I'm going to walk out the front door to get some sunshine. You recognizing that's your intention, taking action on it, accomplishing that starts to feed that system of, okay, we do what we say we're going to do. We are empowered to take that action and we see it through. And that's what we really have to keep doing, because over time, and I know everyone can relate to this, is we fall back on our promises all the time. Oh, I'm going to do this, and you don't do it. And it's those repeatable, habits again and again, where we don't follow through with what we say, that start to make us believe that we're a victim and that, what we say is never going to happen anyways.
What a great way to say that. I completely agree. And I loved your example because it's like that, value of integrity. You say you say you're going to do something and you do it. And when you don't do it and you fall down that, hole, all of a sudden it's like, okay, so you've just lost your own internal, you've said you're going to do it. So now inside of you is already saying, well, we don't follow through with things.
Right.
And that creates more of the victim. Like, why didn't this happen to me? And so as we're kind of wrapping this up, what do you think that people absolutely today, from a coaching perspective, must have, like they really need, this is the key to your coaching success. This is what you do so well. What would you say that is?
The values, foundational wise, and I think we hit the second one, filtering your thoughts so you control your mind. And you touched on the other one briefly, learn how to be in the present moment. That is such a game changer for people. And I don't mean just the present moment so that you can experience the joy that's in it, but one of the number one things that people kind of set people back and hold people back is fear and worry and anxiety. And none of that exists in the present moment. That is all future-oriented thoughts. So that is huge for people. Learn to be right here and right now. Back to that example, when my clearing firm, failed, if I kept thinking about tomorrow or next month, I was never going to be here to take action in the present moment. So that is a huge piece for people. Learn to be in the present moment so that you can rid yourself of the stress, the overwhelm, the anxiety, the worry that lives in the future. And also the past brings all the guilt, remorse, and regret. So we alleviate those from our life. Gosh, we become pretty unstoppable and fearless.
It is so true. And when you think about the future and worry, right? And I had a mom who was a worry wart. I mean, my God, she worried for everybody. And when I really started to learn what was behind worry, I realized, wow, she is worried about things that haven't even happened, right? And they say that like 85% of what you worry about never happens. And the other 15%, something 85 to 90%, it's never as bad as you really thought. I mean, the percentages go down, go down, go down. And then there's always that, which we discussed earlier, there's always that point where, all right, so you're in the middle of a relaunch, and what was the lesson learned, right? Sometimes as you said, the financial scandal and what happened in the closing down and rebuilding your business, it allowed you to then really decide, hey, I'm going to go do that. And people need to hear that. People need to be able to go through, because so many people are having these types of situations right now. They need to be able to hear it from you that they can achieve it. They can get through it, and based on their values and based on how they're going to take responsibility. It's just it's all around what you had to struggle and go through. But you had such a great concept of just, hey, one thing each day, just, take that one thing, find that one thing. What can I do? What can I do right now? What are these controllables that's so impactful? So Angie, what is next for you? What's coming up?
Yes, coming up. Well, I've got the book coming out, The Nonnegotiable You, which should be out in the next month. So that is exciting. The podcast launches, which is called Sharing Wisdom, also in the next month. So two pretty big pieces for me. And then I'll be starting on that second book, Choose Your Seat, which, is an exciting project as well.
I'm impressed that you are just about to get your book out there and you're already talking about the next one.
I loved it. I loved that writing process. And, like we talked about, it was like the Mount Everest, but I absolutely loved it and felt amazing when I put it all together. So I can't wait to do the next one as well.
Well, I'm so excited for you because you have the book, you have the podcast. I mean, it's really giving you a platform and so many different vehicles for you to share all of the wisdom that you have to offer people. So super excited for you. And last but not least, a question that I really am interested in is when you think about finances and business for, women and men out there that are running their business and they're just starting off, what is the best way that they can become competent in knowing what they must know as that entrepreneur as they're scaling their business?
Clarity is always the first thing I direct people towards, because most people don't lean into what they don't understand. So just start with your numbers, get granular about understanding what you have, what you want, what operating costs are. Just understand everything inside and out. And then I would say, look to other people in your industry and ask them, what's the most important thing I need to know about my finances as an attorney, as a small business owner, as a realtor, whatever it may be, because each industry is different. But it's that clarity. People tend to take that ignorance is bliss approach.
Mm-hmm. So true, isn't it?
No good. It's no good, I promise.
And if people want to actually find you, what's the best place they can go?
On Instagram, Angie Wisdom Life Coach. I put a tremendous amount of content out there. Same handle on LinkedIn and YouTube as well. And the website is always great too, which is angiewisdom.com.
angiewisdom.com. And Angie, if you could have this, all the books, everything successful, and allow for people to have the wisdom, what is your one word this year that you are going for? What is that? What's your word?
Impact.
Impact. And you are making it. So as we wrap, thank you so much for being here. And
thanks for having me.
Oh God, it's been so great. And for those that want to find out more, you can see in the show notes. We are going to continue this journey of relaunches and giving you inspiration. And as always, live now, love now, relaunch now. And we will see you next week. Take care. If you like this video and want to get more like it, head over here.